Thank you, Elaine. Good afternoon, everyone. Before I go into my reflections on this piece of marvelous work, I really would like to thank the Ethnobotany Hub and, well, all the team that has worked tremendously to bring about this very first publication of the sort. It is truly a pleasure to welcome you all to the launch of the first publication produced by the National Hub for Ethnobotanical Research within my Foundation for the Wellbeing of Society. Cloistered Spaces is a book that exemplifies the ethos of my foundation. It has brought together disparate communities in a respectful way by listening to the experiences of the people of these islands and sharing their valuable knowledge in a form that is at once approachable and thought-provoking. Verdala Palace and its grounds are a particularly fitting location in which to encounter this research. We are surrounded by the beauty of Malta's precious green spaces and invited to appreciate their serenity. It is a sobering thought as we admire the Busquet woodland to remember that once all of the Maltese islands looked very similar. It is an invitation to remember that spaces once existed in abundance, where the island's flora and fauna could abide harmoniously with the human inhabitants of our country. Unfortunately, many people no longer have easy access to green and healthy spaces. It is concerning to acknowledge the environmental hazards we now face, both nationally and on a global scale. We are all aware of the dramatic risks posed to our well-being by climate change. These dangers shall only become more pressing. They have impact on all of our Mediterranean region and all of humanity. This winter, our islands underwent a drought that was the worst on record for half a century. Communities of agricultural workers in Malta and Gozo experienced acute precarity, their crops devastated and their livelihoods threatened. In light of these concerns, we cannot let our discussions about the environment, as contained in this book, be swept away by a well-intentioned but ultimately disempowering nostalgia. Cloistered Spaces brings together in one place and for the first time a selection of narratives that explore the relationships between religious communities in Malta and Gozo and their natural environments. It presents the environmental heritage of our islands through the eyes and in the language of faith. The research presented today asks us to pause and reflect on this heritage and to ask pertinent questions as we move forward beyond the book's popular treatment into deeper areas of reflection and discussion. What does it mean to carry the memory of these monastic spaces into our lives? Who are our future generations to remember as the pioneers of the ecological guardianship in these islands? And how must this knowledge shape our national discourse and the direction of policy on issues of the environment? Let the rediscovery of our past provide fresh impetus for the future in an aware of present realities. We must look at our past traditions, at the architectural, agricultural, and social ingenuity of our ancestors, and find ways of reapplying their creative, sustainable, and holistically oriented solutions to issues ranging from water management and energy efficiency to community care and seasonal sensitivity. Above all, we cannot focus on symptomatic manifestations of environmental abuse without addressing the underlying and disordered relationship we seem to have created as communities and as a nation with our natural world. This is the central message at the heart of Cloistered Spaces. Through its exploration of the monastic life in reflective awareness of the earth, we are challenged to reconsider our frantic pace of life. We are challenged to consider the limited space our contemporary lives offer for meaningful connections with one another and with the environment. For centuries in the Western tradition, our interior knowledge of the world has been limited to reflexive experience. The natural world was considered only to be animated by our projections, with no interior life of its own. The earth was seen as a dead object, constantly available for exploitation and abuse. What damage this dangerous vision of reality has done. Not only has it wounded our planet and the planet life and non-human animals with whom we share its surface, it has wounded us most deeply. It has created discord, imprisoning us in the little dark room of our own ego. It has impoverished our relationships with each other, with our fellow creatures, with the natural world, and with the source of life itself, from which all things draw their vitality. What better time than to re-encounter the pre-modern legacy of Malta and Gozo's religious communities, which offer a way of life that still preserves in various forms a different understanding of the natural world. To listen to the voices of these monastic communities and hear in them something different from the constant drumbeat of consumerism and consumption. To learn to reapply and to transform elements from these traditions to the context of our own very different but nonetheless interconnected lives. The narratives contained in cloistered spaces speak so eloquently of the links between the participants and our communities based on systems of sharing and benefication. They speak of the need for surrender to the contemplative power of green spaces. They speak of gratitude and of peace. This is the sense of peace and well-being we must strive towards in every way we can, both for ourselves and on behalf of future generations. My Foundation for the Wellbeing of Society has, in response to consultations held with the children of Malta and Gozo, sought to address their requests for green and open spaces through an activity entitled the President's Secret Garden. Entering into its second edition this year, the initiative combines elements of self-reflection, environmental awareness, and creative education. It creates a community of learning and of imagination rooted in the children's experience of the garden. It is this kind of innovation, which listens to the needs of people and mobilizes the participation of countless individuals, groups, and communities that offers us a secure way forward. It is the active participation of civil society, of the goodwill we must share in common, that gives us hope for the future. Together, uniting our experiences and our aspirations, we can build a society that is not only more inclusive of diversity, but more authentically oriented towards sustainable and healthy modes of development. For centuries, the monastic communities of the Maltese Islands transmitted their unique environmental knowledge, technologies, and histories. These were disseminated across entire communities and formed an integral part of the living infrastructure of people's lives. Let this legacy inspire us. The book being launched today encourages us to uphold the dignity of our environmental heritage and find ways in which it may guide us to tackle contemporary issues of ecological sustainability and conservation. Let us take this opportunity to begin a new chapter in the history of our Maltese Islands. Let us turn away from exploitation and move towards deep reflection, embracing the peaceful transformation of our communities and striving for the well-being of all. Thank you.